Hello, everybody, and welcome to another recital. Today we have the recital called Criterion for Continued Life and Ascension, Part 1, Negative Aliens and Their Cabal Puppets by Mohsen Paul Sarfarazi, Ph.D. Criterion for Continued Life and Ascension, Part 1, Negative Aliens and Their Cabal Puppets. A brief overview of the negative aliens' history, contaminating the consciousness fields of the Nebadon, our universe, together with a short list of atrocities that they have committed while invading the territory of Nebadon. Through creating unauthorized tears in the fabrics of space-times, joining them together to form wormholes, and in turn, linking these wormholes to form a black hole system is presented. It is explicated that these negative aliens have created an incredible amount of energetic wastes or miasma in the consciousness field of Earth through utilization of their AI machinery that progressively has led to the generation of black goo and its adherence to human DNA, culminating in a variety of forms of genetic mutations and alien hybridization. Being of parallel, anti-parallel dimensions to our Earth and being energetic or stealth to our physical plane, their negative agendas have been particularly carried out by a horde of narcissistic, self-serving, hybrid human individuals who are firmly set on attaining fame and fortune for themselves at the expense of others. With utter apathy and ruthlessness, who consider everyone else as inferior to their elitist lineage and pyramidal hierarchical societal structure, even viewing other humans as nothing more than farm animals to be put in essentially forced labor and being utilized as slaves and such. At the same time, being totally mind-controlled, mind-slided and blank-slated as to not be aware of what is transpiring in their phantom reality. That, to a significant degree, is actually governed by the negative aliens' AI machinery. Finally, it is explicated as to what will happen to these nefarious individuals during the beginning of this current ascension cycle, with reference to their new course of existence. Introduction. A brief account of the history of negative aliens and their ancestors. The reptilian negative aliens represent a viral source with the potent capability in causing deleterious infection in the body of the God source that is referred to as the prime creator or the cosmos. The ancestors of these utterly nefarious beings, which were referred to as carrions, that signifies a form of scavenging bird resembling vultures, were initially organic living things prior to becoming fallen. However, as a result of subscribing to a consistent negative karma, effectively expanding away too much from central 0 point field or the neural network of the God source, eventually they managed to sever their connection to the God source. And this was effectuated by consistently, utterly defying the laws of the cosmos, the law of one, progressively with more intensity and audacity, catering more and more to selfishness and narcissism, to a point they began to regard themselves as local mini gods. Accordingly, instead of revering the right of free will and principle of sovereignty and the mandate of not trampling on the right of others, as well as not interfering with the natural course of consciousness development of others as a matter of service to self only, and the dogma subscribing to entitlement to everything and everyone else, they became conquerors and tyrannous oppressors, suppressors of others. Thus, they proceeded to wage wars on others as ferocious raptors, either killing their organic consciousness beings or putting them in bondage in favor of preying upon them and using them as slaves and laborers, etc., as they seriously believed that they were superior to others due to their incredible warring and violence tendencies, and catering to utterly narcissistic traits as warriors and conquerors, as their descendants still engage in such psychopathic practices. All these amounted to seriously deflecting away from the law of one, with the added belligerence of deliberately disregarding and even challenging the mandate of non-interference and abstaining from violating the right of free will and sovereignty of others. Thus, as a result of excessively deflecting away from the God source, leading to accumulation of horrendous amount of negative karma in their organic souls, eventually they became severed from the God source. And probably due to their utter blindness through narcissistic and selfish tendencies, what they did not realize was that they might get separated from the open loop of free energetics provided by the God source to all organic consciousness beings, who epitomize his, her, its offspring. Accordingly, these incredibly nefarious beings came to the rude awakening that being deprived of open loop free energetic of the God source, they perhaps have no other alternatives but to either self-consume and die, or to resort to energetic parasitism, vampirism, prolonging their life through siphoning the consciousness energies of others. This is despite the fact that they could retract from their nefarious ways and repent as to join back the collective of the rest of organic consciousness beings. It was perhaps they thought they did not want to relinquish their falsely perceived power or all that they had acquired through pillage and the conquest of others. Besides, there is no doubt that they continued to psychopathically and narcissistically elate themselves with the futile delusion that they have acquired the status of godhood as local warriors and conquerors. Later, as they were dealt with through their containment, the rest of them who fled were inevitably chased out of the higher universes, who ended up making a hole in the fabric of space and time and entering our universe. Upon entering our Nebadon universe, the ancestors of the negative aliens, the Carians, eventually settled in the Orion constellations. There, in the swamps of Orion, they created their offspring, the reptilian races. The malevolent deeds of negative aliens. The reptilian races later began desecrating the established 12D grid tree of life of the Nebadon universe by first destroying the Lyrian stargates, starting with the 12th universal stargate in Aramatena and the 11th universal stargate in Avion, and finally the 10th stargate in Vega. The reptilian races ever since have been a millstone around the neck of all organic consciousness beings by invading their societies, conquering and capturing them, putting them in bondage, looting their resources, and feeding upon their harvested consciousness energies as parasites, vampires. With this introduction, it is expressed herein that the objective of this essay is not to serve as a comprehensive source for covering the negative aliens' history, nor even all the atrocities that they have done in this part of the cosmos, or indeed this quadrant of our universe. Suffice it is to say that as a way of dealing with reptilian negative aliens problem, the Guardian founders and the Master Christos collectives created human beings with a 12D strand, silicate-based crystalline DNA structure as to serve as a source code for the genetic records of all organic consciousness beings in this universe. Our genetics was modeled after the Master Christos angelic orphan beings from the 7 higher heavens or super universes, including the genetics of the 12 best species who donated 1 strand of their DNA to serve as a prototype tyrannism for our human species. Accordingly, the negative aliens perceive that we thus became a proverbial thorn in their side. This absurd delusion perception also exasperated by the fact that they have always deeply resented our technologically advanced genetics by a way of not only being able to naturally procreate, but having multidimensional consciousness, as well as having inherent trait of evolutional or consciousness expansibility, has made them determined to consistently harass, conquer, and subjugate humans to unconscious enslavement. Being condemned to unconscious enslavement, also the advantage for them for being easily able to harvest our divine consciousness energies while preying on us as a kind of zombies, being unaware of what is transpiring. This is why we have invested on a highly sophisticated mind controlling AI machinery effectuated by essentially reversing our consciousness mechanics to suit their agenda. That should have said, this is why they have invested on a highly sophisticated mind-controlling AI machinery effectuated by essentially reversing our consciousness mechanics to suit their agenda. Accordingly, they've been consistently streaming mind-controlling AI signals with the underlying intent to impose self-destructive impulses upon us that function by a way of acting as holographic inserts, muddying our consciousness field of reality. This is also exasperated by a horde of dark entities, demons, negative forms, etc., becoming attached to us as parasites. Consistently trying to prey upon us through mimicking our inner voice, whispering sweet nothings, self-destructive impulses, leading to futile temptations, or engaging in conducts that ultimately bring upon us pain, suffering, misery, anxiety, fear, even dread that's serve to relinquish our lowest consciousness energetic essence, referred to as loosh, for them to feed upon. And in addition to mind-sliding impulses that they can constantly stream upon us in our consciousness reality field to derail us and self-reinforce these self-destructive traits, they have ensued that we never consciously expand by effectively separating us from our inner or future higher self and the parent spirit that is ultimately connected to the God source. And this is effectuated through imposition of frequency fences, genetic implants in our bioenergetic field that ensures that our higher chakra seals can never become open, leading to the activation of our higher DNA strands and revealing the incredibly higher dimensional consciousness information to enlighten us. Accordingly, the reptilian negative aliens have managed to cause an incredible amount of managed and adverse mutation in our genetic over the course of years that will take a considerable amount of efforts and energies to rectify the problem and heal. And in order to do this, they had to damage and subsequently reverse the system of Earth consciousness mechanics infrastructure that include the Earth core, the planetary brain, the stargates and portals, the Earth's ley lines and actional lines leading to various consciousness grid structures. Additionally, they proceeded to construct their own consciousness reversal system. Example, the serpent and the dragon grids. And by a way of making holes in the fabric of the space-time and joining them in order to make different wormholes. Example, the falcon and the phoenix wormholes that form the basis for these reversal grids. Accordingly, it has taken considerable effort and energies in order to try and repair such damage inflicted on the consciousness mechanics infrastructure of Earth that is still ongoing. Additionally, as some of these systems are damaged beyond repair, the Guardian founders have had to devise new override systems to be able to transit the human souls to higher dimensions. A brief list of negative aliens' atrocities. The negative alien and their ancestors have committed the despicable act of desecration of the right of free will and sovereignty of other solar organic consciousness beings, as well as define the mandate of non-interference in the course of consciousness expansion development of others through engaging in violent warring conquests and putting others in bondage while pillaging their resources. And upon constantly perpetuating nefarious acts with regard to others and consequently accumulating an insurmountable amount of negative karma, they managed to sever their connection to the God source and its fountain of free energetics provided within an open loop to all organic consciousness beings. As a result, they condemn themselves to closed circuit energetics that would inevitably lead to their self-consumption. So instead of repenting and withdrawing from their clearly eternally non-functional way of existence, in light of being forgiven and starting all over as once again organic consciousness beings, they decided to become parasitic, vampire, preying on the energetic of the organic consciousness beings by siphoning and feeding upon their energies. This led to further cataclysmic destruction or deterioration of the structural integrity of the cosmos by, for example, making tears in various space-times and joining them to generate wormholes and even merging these wormholes to form black holes akin to a thief or a burglar who unlawfully commits a crime through breaking and entering. Their invasive act led to incredible damage, destruction, and devastation in God's consciousness, mechanics, infrastructure in our universe, and prior to that, in the neighboring universes. For example, they destroyed the most powerful universal gates in our system in the Cradle of Lyra, which relate to controlling the operational functions in our time matrix. These include the 12D Universal Stargate, Arimatena, and 11D Stargate Avion, and the 10D Stargate Vega, as well as 8D Orion Gate. The obliteration of the Larian stargates led to the destruction of the architecture of the solar Logos Christos body in this universal system. Subsequently, these black hole entities went to Orion in order to turn and use the 8D metagalactic core as their military base and AI command control center. And more close to home, they managed to damage and reverse the most important Earth Stargate systems and the consciousness grid and the ley line system that include the 12th Stargate in South France, the 11th Stargate in Stonehenge in England, the 10th Stargate in Iran, and the 4th Stargate in Giza, Egypt, together with their underground passageways, the Q sites. Additionally, they managed, for example, to totally reverse the Golden Eagle Grid, renamed White Eagle Grid by them, as well as creating their own reverse grid, such as the Dragon Grid and the Serpent Grid, the Falcon Grid and the Phoenix Grid, the two latter being formed from the wormholes created in the Bermuda Triangle, as well as the Thotian Grid, the Dove Grid, the Nephilim Reversal Grid, NRG, as well as the Nibiru Electrostatic Transduction Net Field technology based upon the Nibiru Diodic Crystal, NDC, buried in Stonehenge, England. And the underlying reasons for damaging and reversing the Guardian Founders' constructed conscious mechanics infrastructure of Earth, as well as devising and building their own, was to primarily do the following. Number one, provide a way for siphoning the magnetic energies of Earth. Number two, to give them a means for mind controlling the 3D Earth humanity via the use of holographic inserts to compel humanity to give into impulses of self-destructive behaviors while maintain humanity in a sedated or sleeper state. With streamed upon delusional thoughts and perception that is as if you are listening to your own inner voices as free consciousness embodied beings craving for such desires that include materialism, that has certainly been imposed on the people of Earth, sexual promiscuity, deviancy, all in the delusional names of free enterprises and free right of experimentation. And this was exacerbated through launching energetic suppressor parasitic entities, as well as demons and other dark forms to prey upon the consciousness energetics of humanity through further causing pain, suffering and misery, via also inciting fear and anxiety while you do not even understand what is happening to you. Number five, to provide a means to keep humanity in a state of unconsciousness while they proceed to siphon and prey on humans as energetically parasites and vampires. Number six, to provide a means for negative aliens to blank slate, consciously wipe humanity to follow a false light as a false umbilicus to the astral plane. So from there, they could reproduce humanity to reincarnate back on Earth, undergoing the same futile cycle of rebirth leading to physical death, meanwhile undergoing the same programs of phantom reality comprised of pain, suffering, and misery, leading to providing a means for them to harvest our energy as farm animals, energetic battery generators, and such. Number seven, to provide for AI machinery that would impose frequency fences as to keep humans always in low frequential consciousness that would serve the purpose of continuously producing loot for them to consume, to utilize for running their AI machinery, and for storage as a result of humanity's continuous mind sliding and mind controlling program software. 9, and to exacerbate the problem, to devise genetic implants that, together with the said frequency fences, would interfere with the process of chakra seals opening up, interfering with and blocking the activation of our higher DNA strands, leading to consciousness expansion and evolution, as well as inhibiting us from exercising our right of multidimensional consciousness experience via being in touch with our inner higher selves, our monadic and avatar selves, and the higher self, as well as maybe stretching all the way into 0-point field, surfing the neural network of God with the advent of increasing our propinquity, apologies, it's a difficult one to say, propinquity to the God source. Again, apologies. Number 10, and on a more permanent basis, to utterly deprive us from our innate right of consciousness, expansibility, evolution, by being able to undergo the process of Hieros Gamos, sacred marriage, as a prerequisite to ascending to higher planes of dimensional consciousness or harmonic universes. Number 11, this would in turn deny us or rob us from ever activating our Merkaba light vehicle to be able to time travel or teleport to other planes of consciousness. Number 12, additionally, their AI machinery has produced enough waste energy, miasma, as exhaust dead energies that has tremendously polluted the consciousness fields of Earth and its vicinity, the domicile in which humanity is supposed to thrive as solar organic consciousness beings. Number 13, in turn, these miasma or energetic wastes resembling energetic sewage or feces has caused aging, a myriad of diseases, and other complications for human consciousness embodiment, leading to eventual excessive degradation in our natural frequency of consciousness vibration like quotient, leading to physical death, much to the delight of negative aliens who are more than happy to reroute us through the astral plane for future recycling of us, reincarnation after reincarnation. This way, we can revisit the 0-point field and recharge fully as pure organic energetic conduits, only to have our energy progressively siphoned, leading to aging and eventual death again, before another futile circle of rebirth and death begins, living another life under agony. Number 14, and such miasmic field has caused progressive genetic mutations with the introduction of black goo, a distortive version of carbon allotropes referred to as buckyballs that serve as the elemental for AI entities that has over the course of millennia adhered to our carbon-based genetics. Number 15, apart from cycles after cycles of time undergoing the same generated memories of extreme cataclysmic pains, sufferings, miseries, inundated with anxieties, fears, and dreads, the advent of these accumulated negative energies have produced a form of psychosis neurosis for many individuals leading traces of incredible anger, a tendency for violence and revenge in people. And these have accumulated as a result of involuntarily historic galactic wars with the negative aliens. To conclude, all these genetic mutations as a result of adherence of black goo to human DNA, deliberate alien hybridization, as well as accumulated tendencies of psychosis and neurosis by ways of surfacing as anger, violence, conflict, various prejudices, need to be compassionately witnessed and healed through recapping one's buried genetic memories before upshifting humanity's frequency light quotient of consciousness, leading to possible heroismus and ascension. What happens to reptilian negative aliens during the current ascension cycle? In all, the reptilian negative aliens have desecrated the consciousness mechanics infrastructure of our universe. They are generally highly aggressive, warring species who are energetically parasitic vampiric, who have a highly violent nature, are easily prone to conflict, who have been routinely engaging in invasive actions, conquering other races, putting them in bondage, pillaging their planetary energetic resources, including harvesting the consciousness energetic of solar organic sentient beings. The negative aliens, therefore, have a predatory mind, who have been continuously damaging, distorting, and reversing the consciousness mechanics infrastructure of countless other species, causing an incredible amount of pain, suffering, and misery on them, subjecting their captives to an incredible amount of anxiety, fear, dread, generating psychosis, neurosis in the psyche of their war prisoners. And of course, such oppressive, suppressive, tyrannical warring tactic have been quite nefariously purposeful, as it has served them to siphon and harvest an incredible amount of low frequential consciousness, energetic essence, loosh, upon which they prey and feed not only themselves as energetic for parasitic vampiric beings, but to supply the much needed energies to operate their AI machinery, with more left to store in their black Moloch energetic storage tanks. Apart from such atrocities perpetuated due to their unbelievable narcissistic and utterly selfish traits, regarding themselves as the masters of the universe and mini-gods, demanding the praise and worship of their captives, as well as tremendously egotistically demeanor, clearly reflecting a delusional false pride that every other races are inferior to them, and exasperated by the exhibition attitude of flaunting their prior conquests. They have unfortunately managed to persuade members of many other narcissistic and warring species to join their ventures with the promise of sharing the spoils of war. And most of these species often happen to be genetic hybrids, carrying a modicum of their DNA. These are reptilian hybrids who have often looked upon them as role models, as conquerors, wanting to emulate their false pride as similar oppressors, suppressors of other non-violent organic species. Accordingly, many races, including some of the extremely revered high trans-dimensional blue-ray Melchizedeks, who were bestowed upon the task of acting as ascension hosts in the lower dimensional fields up to 5D in the previous ascension cycle, who plummeted into the same egotistical narcissistic trap of becoming fallen, And the primary motivation for the Melchizedeks was that they had already plunged themselves into the delusional belief system of male superiority, patriarchal domination, and misogyny that are among the most prolific dogma of the reptilian negative aliens. After all, the reptilians are known to regard their female counterparts as weak and good for nothing, but perhaps for violent sexual intercourse only. And even many of their hybrids have altogether annihilated their female counterparts, either deliberately resorting with pride to cloning, or as a result of having just been taken to captivity as sexual slaves and utterly massacred, either just then or thereafter upon their defeat in such wars. And note, since neither the reptilians nor the hybrids cannot undergo ascension that requires hieroskamos, thus gender polarity integration is not an issue for them. Consciousness expansion, evolution, ascension, as well as multidimensional consciousness are the exclusive privileges for having solar organic consciousness, such as the Christos-based angelic orphan originated human beings. Furthermore, ego is a prized trait for the reptilian negative aliens and their hybrids. This is why, through their extensive conquests of many lower dimensional beings, particularly those of the first harmonic universe, they practically introduced an ego-based phantom reality that has become really the proverbial thorn in humanity's side. Ego is the primary culprit for consistently whispering the sweet nothing impulses via the inner voice of humanity, deployed via the mind-controlling holographic software inserts devised and streamed by the negative aliens' AI machinery. Many attempts have been made to rehabilitate negative aliens via genetic hybridization methods, introducing organic genetics in them. Yet they have been highly defiant regarding cooperating or submitting to such a project. These negative aliens are inundated with non-human form of tremendous ego and narcissism that over billions of years has created a complete sense of apathy and disregard for organic consciousness beings, particularly humans who they utterly hate. Accordingly, they are totally void of compassion, empathy, love, unconditional or not, who do not have any respect for the right of free will and sovereignty, or even any right to live, for that matter, of others, consistently slaughtering other or solar organic consciousness beings, such as humans, or subjugating them to extreme conditions related to distress, anxiety, fear, dread, causing pains and sufferings and miseries in them in order to harvest their loot. They are also totally oblivious to the doctrine of connectedness or unity consciousness, only looking for what they perceive as number one, being strongly committed to the dogma of service to self only, even if it means plunder and go, or kill all and take no prisoners, except for the need for subjugating them to bondage and unconsciousness enslavement. And what was recited as to make the provisions of the law of one, compassion, empathy, love, service, unity consciousness, connectedness, respect for the right of free will, sovereignty of others, non-interference in or non-undermining the consciousness expansion affairs of others, are all the prerequisites for continued life or incarnation leading someday to ascension, evolution upon attaining consciousness expansion. The negative aliens are also extremely materialistic and regard everything as theirs for the taking, being inundated with extreme greed and lust that has been indestructible. Accordingly, over the billions of years, they have developed an utterly unbelievable predator mind. Indeed, these fallen entities, plagued with incredible negative ego, whose primary consciousness are predatory thoughts and belief systems of hatred, fear, war, and killing, exist in the anti-God and anti-creation, anti-life paradigm of reality that the Guardian founder referred to these intruder races as the Vandal groups. And not only themselves possess fragmented minds, they are governed and maintained by AI machinery within a pyramidal, hierarchical, hive-like structure. They are also incapable of accrediting frequencies or of organic consciousness without having any hint of consciousness or consciousness multidimensionality, consciousness expansibility, and evolutional capabilities as organic beings do. There has been many attempts by the Guardian founders of this universe, as well as most likely other neighboring universes prior to their fleeing or evictions, to rehabilitate them before, but to no avail. These are anti-God, anti-creation, anti-life beings who have made a mockery of divine consciousness by not only trying to reverse it, but to form their own pathetic mimicry of our creation. Accordingly, what we have as Trinity has been distastefully imitated to form two gestalts of artificial form of intelligence, for them referred to as the Satanic Dark Mother principle and the Luciferian Dark Father principle. And everything that is good is reversed to its extreme negative polarity as compassion, empathy versus apathy, love versus narcissism, service to others versus service to self, unity consciousness, connectedness versus separatism, with so many other things that are utterly repugnant and even nauseating to speak of, such as killing a child to drink his or her pure innocent blood, or adrenochrome, and all forms of satanic and Luciferian rituals. So as a result of this long time atrocities that the reptilian negative aliens and their cohort have committed over the course of many millennia, severely adversely impacting humans and other consciousness beings, they are now being confronted and read their rights to start appreciating that indeed there are certain universal laws in place that the Guardian founders are in charge of, ensuring that the provisions of Law 1 are met, leading to continuous prosperity of all universal citizens, so they can experience life and develop accordingly to their own devised morphogenics. So these main groups of negative aliens that are comprised of and not limited to violent predatory beings such as the Orion group, reptilians, insectoids and their hybrids, and such beings as black hole entities, the moon chain lineages, the fallen angelic, the fallen seraphim, even the fallen Elohim, as well as the fallen Anu lineages, are being exiled and transited to the Andalusia system located in the Orion molecular cloudburst and the supervoid in the Eridanus constellation, and put under quarantine from the rest of the universe in what may be essentially described as an isolation bubble. These entities constitute a group of wild, savage, parasitic, vampiric entities with extreme negative egos that have invaded the territory of Earth, as well as many others, to imprison and enslave the consciousness of solar organic beings, ensuring that they never consciously and intellectually develop or evolve while they prey on their inherent divine energies. And all this constitutes a gross violation of the cosmic law beyond even any universal concern. The Eridanus constellation is located in the southern hemisphere. Eridanus represents a celestial river. You can just see it. There's the map there. Its name in Sanskrit means the stream, current, or torrent. In ancient Greek, this name is associated with the River Po in Italy. The constellation is usually depicted as a river flowing from the waters poured by Aquarius. It is the sixth largest constellation in the night sky, occupying an area of 1,138 square degrees. It is located in the first quadrant of the southern hemisphere. Orion is among one of its neighboring constellations. Eridanus contains 7 stars with known planets and no messer objects. Located in the southern corner of the constellation, its brightest star in the constellation is Achenar, Alpha Eridani, that is also the 9th brightest star in the sky, that is approximately 139 light years distant from Earth, which is also the hottest among the 10 brightest stars in the sky. The Eridanus is comprised of a group of galaxies, as well as the so-called Witch Head Nebula. The Witch Head Nebula is a faint reflection nebula in Eridanus. It is thought to be a remnant of ancient supernova or possibly a gas cloud illuminated by the bright star Regal in the neighboring Orion constellation. The Witch Head Reflection Nebula is associated with the bright star Regal in the constellation Orion. The nebula lies about 1,000 light years away from the solar system, and it is the dust in the nebula that reflects the light. The Eridanus group is, in essence, represents the Eridanus cloud that is composed of a group of 200 galaxies, roughly 75 million light years distant in Eridanus. Among these groups of about 200 galaxies, 70% of them are categorized as irregular galaxies, with the other 30% representing lenticular and elliptical galaxies. Eridanus constellation is composed of a supervoid that is the largest void known. Eridanus supervoid is the area of space that contains no galaxies, which is about 1 billion light years in diameter. It is believed that the supervoid is the result of quantum entanglement between our universe and another. Eridanus supervoid was discovered by linking a cold spot in the cosmic microwave background to an absence of radio galaxies Cosmic microwave background radiation refers to thermal radiation that fills the entire observable universe almost uniformly. The CMB cold spot is a region of the universe seen in microwaves that is exceptionally large and cold relative to the average CMB radiation. So for all practical purposes, the Eridana supervoid may be viewed as the void that describes the very edge of our universe. And by transisting the negative aliens to this region of space, one practically evicts them to exist within a void as a form of a bubble, quarantine the rest of the universe from them, so no harm will ever come to the organic inhabitants of our universe. Furthermore, as this void is practically isolated from the neural network of the God source and lies outside its loop, its open loop fountain of free energetics, there are left to their chosen fate as to exist within a closed circuit energetic for the rest of their days, whose final outcome is energetic self-consumption, until they run out of energy and die, without being able to siphon and prey upon the energetics of other innocent beings. The mother's aqua ray vortex ordinarily organically processes material based upon its law of structure. Thus, the mother aqua ray vortex is currently systematically neutralizing the negative aliens consciousness reversal infrastructure that has been generating so much toxic energy waste fields and miasma residue. Accordingly, it is being out inside a vacuum as unmanifest fields and then recycled back into the void. Thus, the human souls that have been trapped in the alien infrastructure or in the phantom spaces are being freed and placed in 4D rehabilitation. Indeed, polarity integration healing is being carried out accordingly to appropriate consciousness pathways that are ongoing in tandem with the upgrades devised as Ascension Plan B mission. However, for these long-fallen vandal groups, collectively referred to as negative aliens, there will never be any ascension. Due to the long and continuous failed attempts in rehabilitating these dark entities, effectuated by their utter lack of cooperation and relinquish their self-delusional status of delusional and self-perceived local godhood, they are finally being evicted to the said supervoid or cloud or bubble. Accordingly, their holographic record is collapsing, which results in their eventual total annihilation, leading to expunging their records from the timeline so no artificially recorded memories can ever exist to haunt humans and non-humans alike. Hooray. Furthermore, as our planetary collective fields are being reconstituted as to contain higher frequential energies that would be inhospitable to them as species, thus any further lack of cooperation by them may automatically result in inevitably inflicting self-harm to them, leading to the destruction of their forms altogether. And finally, it is of interest to note that this applies to all dimensions from 1D all the way to 11D, where these non-human negative ego aliens have been continuously violating the provisions of the law of one and the laws of universal structure. What happens to negative humans, such as the Cabal or the Illuminati, who've been coerced to carry out the negative aliens' agenda on Earth? The negative humans on the planet, who are also inclined to extreme 3D ego, negative polarity with predisposition to practice the dogma of service to self only, who've been worshipping Satan as a false mother, are composed of a group who are traditionally highly apathetic and violent, who have been preying upon other humans with their tyrannous conducts, financially, emotionally, mentally, spiritually, psychologically, viewing them as inferior and nothing regarding them in their perception as some akin to unworthy animals. These are the individuals who have been cooperating with the negative aliens as their puppets to carry out their master's nefarious mind control agenda. This has involved disseminating misinformation, disinformation, and employing paltering techniques to lie to the earth, to incite fear-based propaganda and belief system, promoting dark ignorance, hypocrisy, and superstition among people, also serving as warmongering agents, causing religious conflicts and racial, ethnic, international prejudicial unrest and terrorism, leading to humans building walls among each other instead of subscribing to the doctrine of unity, consciousness, and connectedness. Their so-called elite groups are also the richest on the planet, that under the false pretenses of philanthropism and charitable endeavors, they've been subsidizing the science and technology faction of society. Example, universities and medical and pharmacological laboratories and institutions. And the reason for their financial support of these establishments is to bury any significant scientific results obtained by humanity under patents that never come to fruition, and for the scientists to engage in genetic research geared towards human hybridism and transhumanism, and promoting AI machinery and the negative aliens agenda on the planet. These so-called cabal groups and their cohorts, who are admitted to climb up the hierarchical pyramidal structure of their patriarchal domination and misogynist agenda, also have highly violent as well as highly unmalleable attitude towards any changes, any possible adaptations, anything that is different or contrary to their materialistic and predatory ideologies, negating the possibility of ever investing time and intention in seeing the acumen of organic consciousness in order to be able to learn and evolve. Instead, they bask in and cater to the utterly selfish and narcissistic impulses and delusional fantasies of self-supremacy and elitist attitudes, proceedings to play judge, jury, and executioner to all other people, perceiving the whole planet as their personal real estate and playground, constantly trying to control the planetary population through fear and anxiety, through financial-based issues, eventuated through poverty, hardship, and even famine, via inciting various groups or nations to engage in futile wars with each other. And those who have traditionally come to a certain degree of awakening with regard to the Cabal's nefarious role they play in planetary affairs are severely threatened, persecuted, ruthlessly slandered, and defamed to either keep them quiet or eradicate them altogether. And the primary reason is that these individuals are traditionally genetically modified or altered as to be genetically hybridized with a considerable percentage of reptilian blood, who are utterly possessed by the negative aliens and have no alternatives but to cooperate with their reptilian negative alien masters. And those who they recruit through their secret societies, who are allowed to reach the status of megalomaniac billionaires, etc., have in essence reached the point of no return. also been inevitably possessed by negative aliens before acquiring their narcissistic status of obtaining such a degree of fame and fortune as a result of being constantly supported by the elites of the secret societies where they hold their high-standing memberships. These are the psychopathic individuals who routinely participate in satanic ritual abuse gatherings and such with ceremonies that are even too repulsive to any solar organic consciousness beings. Indeed, the humans in this group who produce such satanic rituals have been absorbed into the fallen angelic or predator mind collectives of the earth. These individuals are utterly disconnected from their organic inner self and their soul spirit or any form of divine spiritual consciousness. They've been absorbed to a collective with utterly narcissistic, materialistic ego personality traits that are enamored with the dogma of patriarchal domination, misogyny, being plagued with the dogma of service to self only, with an utter lack of conscience, a sense of compassion, empathy, love for others, or organic life for that matter. With the total resolute drive and intent to oppress, suppress others with utter ruthless, tyrannical behaviors. As a result of all these derailed conducts over numerous millennia in the Earth human history and through being governed by an AI machinery and infrastructure, they have created a highly toxic consciousness field around Earth, filled with miasmic exhaust or residues. And these are currently being cleansed and cleared by the Guardian founders. Meanwhile, thanks to the courtesy of the Mother Aqua Ray Tunnel vortex, these individuals having established themselves as incredibly rigid and deemed as non-habitual, will accompany their negative alien masters and are being transited to the Eridanus supervoid to eventually self-consume and perish there. Thus, there shall not be any more reincarnations for these individuals. Accordingly, upon the death of the body, they are forever losing their privilege of further human body incarnation. This, of course, signifies that there will not ever be a personal pathway for ascension for these individuals. And when they pass and their physical body dies, they will also forever clear the fallen angelic group mind legacy and records off the earth body. Well, we ended with some good news. So that's part one, and I will probably be back to do part two. It could be somebody else reading part two, I'm not sure yet. Just to check in with everybody to see how you're all doing. In other videos you might have seen, I did mention that we would have group chats and questions for Mohsen. And just recently, everybody has been going under extreme energetic changes. It's the end of May 2021. If anybody wants to look at the date. So we're about to go through even more changes by the looks of it. And certainly the energy feels like it's changing rapidly as we are. And all of us need to do whatever it is we do to keep ourselves right and to keep bringing in all this new light that we are being given to help come together at this time. And just so you know that everybody who is working on themselves is going to be looked after. Keep doing the work within, meditate, clear your energy field every day. I'm doing that now because I'm just feeling the need for it. And it has definitely made a difference. But most people will be going through a lot of changes, and there could be some body changes for anybody and everybody. So do take care of yourself, because you are amazing human beings and you've got something deeply special inside you and all around you. And even though there might be times where it doesn't feel like that, it's there all the time. So go within your heart and stay close as you can to the source, the light of all our lives, the light of who we really are. Our connection to everybody here as well is very important at this time. So please do keep looking after yourself, and we will get back to you with more papers. And thank you to Mohsen, who continues to write and work very hard. And we really appreciate all that he's doing. And I hope that everybody that watches this video gets to understand the nature of what exactly is happening right now. And we're part of a huge change of events that the Earth's never seen before. And just stay focused on being complete and whole and connected to your heart and connected to source, and stay wonderful. So we will talk to you again soon, and thank you very, very much for listening and reading along while I recited this paper. Okay, everybody, bye.